Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're having a good day. Today we are back here at the Ocean Monument where there is some ink floating around on top of the water. One of the interesting traits of Guardians is that they will kill squid. Just whenever a squid appears in the nearby vicinity of an ocean monument, Guardians will go after them. So what we have here is actually a kind of very bad and manually collected ink farm. But hey, I get 7 free ink sacks out of it, so that's not a problem. Today we're actually going to be spending a bit more time over here at the ocean monument we discovered and raided in the last episode, and the reason for that is because I want to start drying this place out. Drying out an ocean monument using sponges or any other kind of material you happen to want can be a long and complicated process, so I figured it's probably best to get it started now so that if we get burnt out doing this, we can always come back to it later and it will already be half done. So let's review the materials we got from the Ocean Monument raid, including all of the dark Prismarine, which I'm still very excited to build with. We have Prismarine bricks and we have regular Prismarine. Now, the difference between these two is the crafting recipe, but the ingredients are exactly the same. You put 4 Prismarine shards into a crafting grid, you get a single block of Prismarine. You put 9 Prismarine shards into a crafting grid and you get yourself Prismarine bricks. So obviously this means that you can only craft regular Prismarine in your 2x2 in your inventory, and you need a crafting table to do anything more advanced. Now, having the ink sacks we just collected means that we can actually get a couple of extra blocks of dark Prismarine, but this recipe is pretty expensive. It's 8 shards and an ink sack just for 1 block. So again, that's going to be something that we probably need a large-scale ink farm for. We need to be farming lots and lots of squids if we're going to be making a huge amount more of that. Now, as for the sea lanterns, I'm quite happy just digging them all out of this ocean monument as they are with Silk Touch and not worrying about crafting them too much. But for those, we will need Prismarine crystals, which we did not get any of, even though we were fighting a whole bunch of Guardians. It was actually fairly focused on fighting the Elder Guardians in the last episode, so that might be why. I didn't really take on too many of the regular Guardians themselves, but once we eventually develop this into a farm where we can farm Guardians to our heart's content, we should be able to get lots of Prismarine crystals and build all the sea lanterns we want. And in the meantime, as we saw last time, there are a whole bunch of ocean monuments in this ocean, so hopefully we should have no problem getting more if we need them at a pinch. We also got our 8 blocks of gold, most of which I will probably end up taking back to the base and maybe even turning into something like powered rail. We also have wet sponges, and these are going to be the key to drying out the monument. Also, Guardians drop fish. Most of the time they will drop cod, but occasionally they will end up dropping something else. And if you have fire aspect on your sword, much like with any animals roaming the overworld that drop meat, those fish turn out cooked, which is pretty funny considering they're all underwater. But anyway, what we're going to do today is start drying out these sponges. We're going to divide that neatly into 8 pieces of sponge, and we're going to put 1 in each of these furnaces with a piece of coal, and then that will dry them out. I've also brought over a bunch of blaze rods, which are probably not going to be the most fuel efficient thing for this because they smelt more items than the average piece of coal. It's 10 or 12 or something like that. But yeah, we're going to have a decent supply of fuel if we just keep using blaze rods for these smelting operations. I've got 64 in each of these, and that should keep us going for quite a while. I guess we could always divide the sponges up differently as well. Now, before we really start tackling the monument itself, I want to show you a little bit about what sponge does. As I mentioned in the last episode, the sponge will actually dry out a significant area of water, but it really depends on how the water is positioned, how successful this is. There's a handy lake over here that I can give you an example with, right? So, oh, there's a couple of lakes. Excellent. More examples. So, sponge will dry out a certain area around it. I think it's a 9x9x3 or something like that, so it will dry out a significant amount of water. For example, if I pop down a sponge here, it's probably going to dry out the entirety of this little section around here. But note that anywhere that water sources can combine, it's going to reform water sources if it can. So if I pop down a sponge here, the water is still going to start flowing in from over there. And if it had a couple more water sources connected over here, for example, you would be able to see it flowing back together like this. See? And then it flows straight over that section there. And while it's still flowing water in this direction because it doesn't have any water sources to connect to on this other side, we have cleared up a lot less of the water than we thought we would. Now, if I pop the second sponge down in here, that's just covering a couple of corners now, and I could even bucket those out like so. And if we find the water source over here, it's usually the highest point of water or the water texture that isn't flowing. we can drop that in there, and then we've cleared out the entirety of the water using only 2 sponges. See, so that's actually not a bad way of clearing out the water. It's pretty effective as it goes. And the only other alternative would be to start from the top down in one of these bodies of water, whether it be the lake over here or one of the rooms inside the Ocean Monument, and fill it up with material and then take that material away again. So sponges really are a quick fix when it comes to that stuff. You just have to be very careful about where you place them to make sure that water sources don't reform and basically erase all of your hard work. Okay, so I did a little bit of fact checking on the Minecraft wiki just then. I wanted to make sure that I was giving you guys accurate numbers, and it turns out that there are some more complex mechanics to sponges than I originally thought. It doesn't just dry out a 9x9x3 area. It will try to dry out any water blocks within a 7x7x7 as far as taxicab distance goes, which means, for example, it won't do 7 diagonally. It'll just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at the most it would dry out would be over to there if we placed it down here. But a single dry sponge will only dry out a maximum of 65 blocks. So you have to be very careful about where you place them, because it's not just going to dry out an entire 7x7x7 room if it's all full up with water. I'm slightly ashamed that I just had to get a calculator out and do that, but that's 343 blocks in a 7x7x7 room full of water. So you would probably need multiple sponges. You will definitely need multiple sponges if you wanted to clear that entire thing out. Generally speaking, with sponges, it is best to place them kind of in the middle of the area that you want to dry out. But remember that water will flow downwards if it can. So oftentimes it's best to place it at the top of an area of water so that it can take care of the downwards flowing water that will appear at the top of the room and leave you able to just clear up the rest of the bottom of the room with a single well-placed sponge. To aid in our efforts to dry out the Ocean Monument, I've brought along a lot of night vision and a lot of water-breathing potions, and these did not take me a whole lot of resources to brew, by the way. That was 3 golden carrots, 3 pufferfish, and I still had a potion or 2 left over from the last episode. I've also brought along some netherrack, because we need a fairly straightforward and bulky material that we can use to section off the rooms inside of here, because following the example we just gave, if you use a lot of sponges to dry out a large area, it's going to take a lot of sponge placing to do it, whereas if you turn the area into a manageable section of like 65 blocks of water at a time, you're always going to be able to eliminate each of those using a single sponge. So it's a good idea to kind of bisect the monument in here, kind of section it off with this netherrack or dirt or whatever kind of easily clearable material you have to hand. Now, netherrack, of course, with our efficiency pickaxes, we can just take care of with one quick sweep of the pickaxe. And the same with dirt, anything like that is probably a good idea. Some people used to use shears and leaves because you could mine them almost instantly, even if you had mining fatigue. But I don't recommend that for actually clearing out an ocean monument, because shears break very easily, whereas if you've got an efficiency unbreaking pickaxe, you're just going to tear through all of the netherrack instantly, pretty much. So we're going to take a few of these down here. We're going to head down, and we'll probably bring spruce door and fence gates just in case we need to make any air pockets real quick, but we shouldn't need to at this point. After all, we are going to be creating giant air pockets of our own. So let's get down here and see what we can do. And even though the Elder Guardians are gone, the Guardians themselves are still quite a significant threat, so I'm going to try and avoid combat where I can, try and slip down here to the entrance while nobody's looking. Good, there we go. So our first task is probably going to be to turn the main entrance here into sort of an airlock, I guess. We'll close off that area with some netherrack here, and I'll start placing sponges first at the top of the room, like so, and then at the bottom of the room, like that. And that's actually taking care of the water nice and easily with 2 sponges. I placed a third one there by accident, but as you can see, if it doesn't absorb any water, it stays dry, so we can just pick that up and use it whenever. Now, it's going to be in your best interests to light this place up, and not necessarily because of mob spawns, because regular mobs won't actually spawn inside the bounding box of an ocean monument. In here, once you're in the building, the only thing that can spawn is guardians, and they need water to spawn in. But it's probably best to light the place up anyway, just in case, because once the night vision wears off, it's going to be a little difficult to see. One other thing we might want to do here is actually place some doors at the entrance, which are going to create air pockets there so the water will dry up again afterwards, and it's going to be nice and easy to get through. We can open those out without the water flowing in and make our exit if we need to go back to the shore and, say, get some more potions or any more materials. You might also want to bring a few doors with you so that you can section off these little areas like so, and then you have an easy airlock to the next room. Now, the next set of rooms is probably going to be quite straightforward to take care of. They've got these larger structures in the center of the room like this, but we can probably just border those off like so. There we go, cut off the laser from that guardian there, And I think this one we will close off here as well, just to make sure that nothing is going to come through from the next room. Aside from the fact that they only spawn in water inside the ocean monuments, Guardians should follow the same mob spawning rules as other mobs, meaning that they won't spawn if they are super close to you. They need to be at least 24 blocks away for you to be able to spawn them. So in cases like this, where we've just got these 2 rooms to work on, this should probably be fine. We shouldn't see any other Guardians spawning in here while we're working on this. Of course, there are occasionally these little hatches that go up to the upstairs rooms, so we want to take care of those as well, and those are going to be a bit of a problem. Ideally, it would be a good idea to work from the top down, so that any water that might fall down from the upstairs floors is going to be taken care of before we work on the downstairs floors. But generally speaking, flowing water is not going to form more water sources down here, so by the time it gets down here, we could probably find a way to contain it very easily, and we're not at risk of the entire thing flooding again. So now we've got this room cleared, we can probably wall this section off with netherrack, and I'm basically going to guess whether or not this is 65 blocks. I don't think it will be, but we'll probably just put 1 sponge on the ceiling there, and we'll only have a couple of other sources to dry out here. I can probably just pop some netherrack on either of those and just slowly dry them out from the top down instead of wasting another sponge on that. Yep, there we go. The rest of that is all gone. There's probably 1 more water source behind there. And there we go, we've dried out the first 2 rooms of this monument. This is all going very well so far. Obviously, the problems come when you have to start digging through these partitions into the next areas, but like I said, any kind of flowing water is not going to form more water sources, so it should be nice and easy to take care of. And with just a few more sponges placed, this entire section of the monument has been cleared out. Very cool, and we're picking up Prismarine as we go, a few more sea lanterns as well. And at this point, I can collect up this door because that's no longer blocking any water, and I can move it into the next section of the monument to help us make these partitions. Now, the other cool thing about this is that Guardians, like I said in the last episode, will actually give you a bunch of experience. So if you need to mend any of your tools at any point, you can just pop them in your right hand there, and even though I've got mending on my armor, eventually the durability on that tool will start to refill, which means we can probably spend a lot of time down here clearing out this monument and not have to worry too much about returning to the surface. And for this one, I'm going to put a sponge over here and a sponge over here just to make sure we get the corners, so we'll pop those down like so. Oh, I didn't even need to place that one in the end. that was a well-placed sponge, and we'll put a couple in the corner there. Get rid of these water sources here, and then that's just the bottom of the room to take care of. Bam! Done. A lot of these smaller rooms are nice and easy. It will be very, very easy to take care of these because all they really are is a decent-sized box room. The ones that become more difficult are further into the monument, and the ones that you saw previously include the vault room, the kind of core where the gold blocks were originally, and these large sections along the side. Those are the ones that you really need to bring a lot of netherrack for, because you will need to do those in very distinct sections for them to dry out easily. And the effects are flashing, and my night vision is flashing on and off, which means that I am probably going to run out of water breathing any second now. So that's also a very good indicator of when you need to step back a little bit and consider where you are. If you want to go back to the surface and get more potions, if you're happy that you've got enough air pockets that you can come back and refill your oxygen anytime you need to. Because generally speaking, it should be possible to head into rooms like this, especially the smaller ones, and deal with everything. If you've got the next room lit up so you can see nice and easily, you should be able to pop in here, pop a couple of sponges up on the ceiling like that, maybe take care of one in the corner. And it's not the most efficient way of using the sponges, but to be honest, we've got enough sponges now, and we have a fair amount of furnace fuel. We don't really need to worry too much about them. Now, naturally, you are going to reach a point at which it makes sense to return to the surface to dry out your sponges, but you could also consider bringing one of the furnaces with you into the ocean monument and bringing a decent supply of fuel so you're not going to run out. We're also going to bring this shulker box full of potions with us, and we've actually got everything we need now to continue drying out this monument from the inside. I think I'm going to use this room here as our little staging area for all of the sponges to dry out, and I think at some point I might have lost one of the wet sponges when I plugged up a hole in the ceiling over here. I think I might have actually lost one. It like popped up there instead of coming back down, but that's not a problem, I guess. We will have to take the loss there, and we can always go and find some more sponges in other ocean monuments. We can take on Elder Guardians to get some more of those. That's not going to be a huge problem. Just a bit of a shame to lose one when we had a nice neat half stack of them. I think to continue this, we're going to move on upwards into the upper levels of the monument and dry out some of the smaller rooms at the top first. And to do that, we're going to knock a hole in this netherrack here, but before I do that, I might actually place just like a little holder there for the water to fall down into. That way it doesn't flood out into the rest of the room. It's not going to cause any huge problems for us, but I think it's kind of nice and neat to do things that way. So I'm going to pop the rest of the wet sponges in there, grab a few more of the dry ones. Those can keep smelting while we do a little bit more work up here. Now let's see what's up here. Not a great deal. I think this is probably where we lost the sponge. I think it might have flown up into this air pocket here, kind of bobbed up to the surface of the water and despawned while I was doing something else. Let's block some of these off as we go. I think the top of the room was actually, yeah, it was over here. I think I remember around this pretty well, and it looks like nobody's home up here, which is perfect. We can take on the rest of this nice and easily. Now I'm going to drink my night vision potion. I'm going to drink my water breathing potion, so I don't have to worry about making air pockets quite yet. But we're going to be making air pockets in here pretty much constantly, so ultimately probably don't need to worry too much about that. Block off this little area here with netherrack. A single sponge in the center should do it, and we are out of the water. It doesn't really look all that different when you have night vision on, but believe me, the water is now flowing in from over there. There is a lot of water in this room that we should clear out nice and easily. And just like that, the last of the water from this room has been cleared. And we did that with a pretty minimal amount of sponges too, which I'm pretty happy with. This being the topmost room of the monument, we can start working our way downwards from here. And there are only really 3 or 4 of these kind of set piece rooms, the 3 rooms that contained the Elder Guardians and the core room where the blocks of gold were. So those are going to be the most challenging areas of it. I think for the most part, the rest of the rooms should be fairly simple. There is a long corridor that wraps around the edges of the monument though, and that might take a little time to clear out, but for the most part it's going to be fairly straightforward, just a matter of going through room by room, avoiding the guardians, putting down netherrack barriers to block off sections of the room, and just place your sponges as accurately as you can. While we're here, we might want to snag some of these sea lanterns, because these are just sat around the edges of the room, not doing very much, and they'll go well lighting up another area. Of course, we could keep them for this monument. We could end up lighting up more of this if we wanted to. We could transform the interior of this into something special if we wanted to. And I know a lot of people have made great success out of turning one of these ocean monuments into their own base, kind of developing it and having areas for different stuff, because it's quite a large structure, so you could more or less transform one of these if you wanted to. One other thing you might want to bring with you is ladders, because if you want to get back up to a higher section of the monument once you've cleared out the water, it's a matter of making a staircase or putting in some sort of ladder that you can climb. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit of a pain to get back up there. Obviously, if you've got ender pearls, if you're wearing a elytra and you want to slam into the ceiling, that kind of stuff, it can all be taken care of pretty easily. But that's another quick piece of advice. In fact, we've got enough wood with us that I will probably make a few ladders using a crafting table right now. Because eventually the plan is to clear out all of the interior blocks of this monument so that only the blocks that are required for the outer shell remain. So it's going to take a little bit of moving around, and that will mean putting some ladders in here and there. Ladders are also able to be waterlogged, so you can include them in the water there, but they won't create air pockets for you, so they're not quite as useful as they used to be in that regard, but they're still pretty useful for getting around. So I'm going to do a little bit more clearing out of this off camera. I'm probably going to bring you guys back in for the bigger rooms just to kind of give you a quick example about how to clear out those guys. But aside from that, this is all going to be fairly straightforward, and we've covered the basics. All you need to do is have a little bit of patience, block off these areas room by room, and give it a go. So at this point, pretty much every small area of the monument has been cleared out. So what we've got left is the core room, the corridor around the outside, the kind of pillar room where we fought one of the other Elder Guardians, and this. This is a crawl space that kind of doesn't get seen much when you're actually raiding the monument, but it's around the outside of one of these kind of rooms where the kind of sea lanterns and stuff around the outside, and this one I've already dried out here, but I think we probably need to clear out this section, because if we miss this out at any point simply because we didn't notice it was there, guardians are still going to spawn in here, and that's not going to be ideal. Plus, when we start to take out all of the interior blocks of the monument, then everything's just going to pour in from here. So I'm going to throw down a couple of quick sponges. That should take care of this one. I thought I'd run out of torches there for a second. And we should just be able to take care of this section kind of piece by piece, like so. And tempting as it is to just swim along here spamming dry sponges, it's going to be much more effective if you keep doing this section by section. Another good tip for this whole process is to make sure you place torches on the walls, higher up if you can. That way, if any water comes through, like so, and ends up washing away some of the torches that you placed on the ground, you've always got torches placed on the walls so the place stays lit up. And once again, it is not necessary that it stays lit up, because Guardians require water to spawn, and you shouldn't find anything else spawning inside of a monument, but it's always worth paying attention to. Kind of helps you remember where you've been and where you're going next as well. So this one should be simple enough to clear out, but these next sections are going to be the tough ones, not only because of their size, but because these are the only places left in this monument where there is still water. So unless you've spent time close enough to this area that no Guardians have been able to spawn, you'll probably find that there are a lot of Guardians in this area. And this corridor is eerily quiet, but yeah, around the corner we're starting to see a few of them huddling up in the occasional area like that. You'll also find them spawning in the water outside the monument, so for the most part you should be okay. I'm going to head into this corner over here and drink my water breathing potion if I can. And while the room itself is a little bit bigger, the theory is still the same. All you need to do is knock out some blocks which are filling up the center of the room, like so, and then section it off into small enough spaces that the sponge will be able to take care of the rest. And because of the height difference in these rooms, you might need a couple of sponges, but with that, it's fairly simple to take care of. And this room is now mostly cleared out. This is just the last push to take care of this room, and this is the one where all the Guardians have been hanging out, so I'm probably going to take a little bit of damage here. Gotta be careful with these guys. They will spring themselves on you. Now, if we can probably cordon off this room here. If we run towards these guys a little bit, they'll scatter. They're not going to pay as much attention to us. We can always take them out with a well-placed swing of the sword here and there. Alternatively, you can always try and direct the water current so it drags them into a room where they won't be able to stay out of water, because they'll tend to flop around a lot when they're out of the water and they won't pay as much attention to you. They can't really attack you as much. Maybe they don't take suffocation damage. Maybe they just flap around a whole bunch. It's been a while. It's been a while since I did anything on this scale, so I'm quite surprised this guy isn't taking any suffocation damage. No worries. We can always try and shoot him with a bow occasionally, which doesn't work quite so well underwater. Finally. Wow, okay. That one was a little bit hectic, and I imagine the one through here will be just as bad. We've got 5 sponges left. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, that's a bigger room than I was expecting. And last but not least, our final chamber here should be dealt with. Okay, just a couple of water pockets left here and there. Get out of my line of sight, you. And it looks like we're good. This place is all cleared up. Now, on to the other large rooms, which I'm not really going to cover in such great depth because you know the theory at this point. It's just a matter of putting it all into practice. You should be able to clear them out in much the same way we've just cleared out the rest of these rooms. Just make these partitions, take everything one step at a time. Don't get tempted to spam sponges everywhere because that never works out super great. You just got to do things carefully with a little bit of patience, and you should be able to conquer these things in no time at all. I think we're all done here. I think this is absolutely everything cleared out, and you'll still see water drips coming from the ceiling, but that is mostly because of the outside of the monument, which is all still very much encased in water, but the inside is all pretty much dry. And I might occasionally discover a room or two here or there that maybe has been missed out of the maze, or, you know, I didn't see originally. There are still a few Guardians just flopping around in here, but I think we're done. So I'm going to start, before we end this episode, I'm actually going to start taking down all of the interior walls of this monument. We're going to set up a couple of chests over here, and I'm going to go from the top down, take out everything on the inside so you guys can see precisely how giant these things are when you clear out all of the walls. And then we're going to have a lot of material after that. We're going to have a lot of Prismarine and stuff that we can work into other builds if we want to. But the outside is still very much full of Guardians, so I'm going to maybe just settle in, have a podcast or something on in the background, clear out the rest of these walls, grab a couple more chests, and then we'll see how we do. And that took about 2 hours, but I am pretty much done here. I've removed all of the blocks which are not essential parts of the structure. For example, if I remove any of these, yep, that's just going to drift out into the sea. And any of the roof blocks, which are obviously dripping water, are all holding back water from the outside. And that is the entirety of an ocean monument cleared out. And amazingly, it looks somehow smaller than I imagine, but also bigger than I imagine every time. It's weird. But anyway, all of these dark Prismarine blocks are part of the outside as well. You'd be able to see them from the outside if you weren't being attacked by Guardians constantly. But this is the amount of resources that we've collected just from removing the interior blocks, give or take the stuff that I already had to mine out when I was raiding this in the first place. But that is a whole bunch of Prismarine bricks. That is a lot of Prismarine. Oh, there's one more there. I guess I'll take that with me as well. There we go, round that up to 48. Good stuff. And yeah, we got a little bit more dark Prismarine, a bunch more sea lanterns, even got a few Prismarine crystals while we were clearing the place out. And I think there might be bits and pieces of stuff. Oh, no, okay, I guess I consolidated it all in those chests over there. Well, that's going to be it for this episode, folks. Hope you've enjoyed this look at clearing out the inside of an ocean monument. Even though it feels like a mammoth task, when you take it on, it is all very doable. And that's going to be it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. Thank you so much for watching. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on the episode if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.